Welcome back everyone to the Berserk Monster Manual, and today we're going to be covering the cream of the crop, your favorite group of all-powerful demons that help govern the fates of mankind themselves, the God Hand. Now, there isn't a specific thing in our real world that the God Hand is directly based upon, at least not in the way that trolls and elves are in Berserk. But we talked about apostles relating to religious apostles being like a messenger of God or a messenger of prophets. So if we want to look at it like a pecking order like that, above an apostle would be a God Hand. So you could look at the God Hand themselves as prophets, telling apostles the gospel and then sending them on their way to carry out that will. Or you could see them as angels, which they have been flat out called before in Berserk. And considering their designs that are inspired from the Cenobites of the Hellraiser series, that makes sense. There's even a line in that movie where the lead Cenobite says that they are considered demons to some, but angels to others. It really depends on how you want to look at it. And that same concept is true in Berserk. They are the highest authority of power when it comes to anything in the Berserk universe, and depending on whether you're looking to become an apostle, or if you're the sacrifice, that'll probably decide how you view them. The God Hand is still mostly shrouded in mystery, but what we do know breaks down like this. In Berserk, there are three worlds that overlap each other. The physical world, which is the world we know, the world of mankind. The astral world, which contains many different layers, including where dead spirits linger, where mythological creatures exist, such as elves and monsters, and each layer goes deeper and deeper until you reach the area where the God Hand reside, which is essentially the final layer of the astral world. Until you reach the third world, which is the world of idea, which is basically a collective consciousness of all living things. It's really abstract, and I'll talk in depth about that another time. But within the world of idea exists an entity. Whether you want to call it God or not is up to you. But in Berserk, it's been called the idea of evil. And this thing was spawned from humanity's collective desires to want purpose in life. So you could say that mankind created God, or a god of sorts. And then that god began spreading influence throughout history to give mankind exactly what it wanted. To help enact this, the idea needed something to help fate or causality happen in the way that it was designed to. Thus, the need for God's angels, or God's hand, was created. Now, before a bunch of people rush to their keyboards, I will have to clarify. The idea of evil was only introduced and explained in one chapter, and that chapter has since been omitted from the story as the author Kentaro Miura requested it to be. Most say he did that because he felt it gave away too much too soon, and because of where it was placed in the story. So the idea of evil is still considered by many to be not canon, though nothing in the story has contradicted it, so I continue to explain as if the idea of evil is a relevant part of the story. But if Miura ever decides he wants to change it later on, that could very well be the case. As of now, to understand the God Hand, we must at least have a sense that there is a bigger entity pulling their strings, and that's all that's really important. The God Hand are still created through the use of a Beylit, as the apostles are, but the God Hand's Beylit is a very specific one that has a deep red color and is called the Egg of the King. It is recognized by apostles as being something extremely important, and should it be discovered, they will take care not to interrupt their fate. But if we believe fate to be unavoidable, then the Egg of the King will wind up in the appropriate person's hand at the exact moment that they need it most. And it works the same as it would for an apostle. At some point, one chosen to be a God Hand will find a Beylit, and at that moment that they reach complete despair, the Beylit will activate, transporting them to the deepest layer of the astral world. How this worked for the very first God Hand member, I'm not sure, but for the rest, they are given an audience with the God Hand that do exist so far, and will be given a choice to sacrifice something important in exchange for greater power. But unlike the apostle sacrifice, which could be just one person, the sacrifice to become a God Hand must be on a much greater scale. The one we are shown in the manga is Griffith, who was the final God Hand member who sacrificed his entire band of the Hawk in order to become Femto. We see his transformation a bit from man into God Hand, and this is how I interpret it, but it seems as though Griffith's human body is discarded, and he is taken to the world of idea where he is told to use the deaths of those he sacrificed along with the collective desires of mankind to create his new body. He appears to basically pull in power from the death and desire surrounding him, which in concept I think is really cool, and it shows how powerful collective thoughts and feelings can be. Now again, a lot of this is headcanon and how I specifically interpret it, But if I don't explain it how I see it, then I'd be skipping a lot of ambiguous detail, and I want to give everyone as full of an explanation as I possibly can. So after pulling in all that power, the God Hand is reborn, if you will, back into the Astroworld with a new body and incredible power. It should also be noted that the God Hand seem to have a body that is reminiscent of what they looked like when they gave up being a human. For the one we see in the manga, Griffith is wearing a helmet when beginning his transformation, and his God Hand form also has a similar appearance with a headpiece along with wings, which correlates to Griffith's symbolism of being a hawk. The God Hand was specifically designed to have 5 members. A hand has 5 fingers, so yeah, self-explanatory. But whatever the ultimate plan of fate is that they are trying to make happen, we don't fully know. We just know that it takes a lot of time to manipulate and make happen. So unlike apostles who can be made at any point in time when a Bailet is activated, a new God Hand member is only added once every 216 years. So for the first 216 years, there must have only been 1 God Hand, then 2, then 3, and so on. We only see them in the story when there's already 4 and creating the 5th. So as how it would have worked for the very first God Hand, Void, when he was created, that's still a mystery. Some have theorized that there's a previous 5 God Hand members that existed before the ones that we know, but it's all just theory at this point. The first God Hand member is the one called Void. Void again seems as though his appearance is based on what he looked like when he died, tortured with his eyes sewn shut and his skin pulled back. Void seems to do a lot of the talking and give some epic speeches along the way, explaining fate and causality to whomever shows up to be sacrificed. He also creates the brand of sacrifice and sends it out to those chosen to be so. It's a mark that's given to you, which means that you are an offering to those of darkness, and they will be drawn to you to try to kill you until you die. Void is also theorized to be the sage that was imprisoned in the kingdom of King Geyserich 1,000 years ago. Many say that he sacrificed the entire kingdom in order to ascend to be a God Hand, but it is yet to be confirmed. Next we have Conrad. He seems to be the most silent of the God Hand members, and is depicted as a large and fat entity with a shell on his back, and his face seemingly stuck in the same position, and also looks very infant-like. Next is Ubik, who is very small compared to the rest of the God Hand members, and floats and flies around as opposed to standing, which I guess would make sense since he doesn't have any legs, but instead just has about a dozen tentacles slithering around. He appears to be the most talkative and most manipulative of all the God Hand members, coaxing others into making their sacrifices. Then we have Slan, who is a straight-up succubus-like woman with bat wings and a high lust and sex drive. She is also manipulative and seems to get great sexual satisfaction out of witnessing violence and evil. The final member is Femto, and he is basically the only one that we know the history of. Femto used to be a man named Griffith who built a mercenary team from the ground up and achieved a very high status in the Kingdom of Midland. After losing his most valuable ally, Guts, he was distraught and acted on impulse, having sex with the Midland princess. He was then caught and then sent to the dungeon to be tortured for an entire year. After being rescued, he re-encountered his Egg of the King, and being told of the God Hand's plans for him, he decided to make his sacrifice of the entire Band of the Hawk, his whole team, in order to ascend higher. His first act on becoming a God Hand member was to rape Casca in front of Guts in order to enact some revenge and to show his absolute dominance over him. Of course, this also shows that even a God Hand still has some sliver of humanity left, and it's not all about enacting causality's will. But some inner, petty human emotions like spite still existed within Femto. Also with Femto, it creates all 5 members, which means the God Hand can then enact more of their plan of fate, which is to bring a God Hand member, in this case Femto, to the physical world to give humanity a savior or messiah-like figure that they all desire, as well as merge all the worlds into one, bringing every nasty and evil astral world creature into the physical world. What the extent of this, or what the next phase of their plan is, has yet to be seen after that. So now you know who and what the God Hand are, but what about their powers and abilities? Well, this is the most ambiguous section of their existence. Everything they can do we don't really know, and we've only seen bits and pieces of their power. But it is safe to say that they are most likely the most powerful beings in the Berserk universe. Warping reality is one thing that they've been shown to do on occasion. As Skull Knight tries to attack Void, Void creates a portal which the sword phases through and then comes back towards Skull Knight. Later on, Femto is also able to catch a sword swipe from Skull Knight, but this time he was using a sword that could literally cut through dimensions, and Femto is still able to stop this swipe and redirects it, and thus causes the merging of the worlds to happen. Femto shows some more abilities, like being able to throw Guts through the air with just a look, and block a cannon blast again just by looking at it and having it explode around him. The God Hand have also been shown to be a constant influence in the physical world despite not being present there. In places where there are high concentrations of negativity, that helps the God Hand members bring themselves closer to the physical world. See, they're basically stuck at where they're at in the deepest level of the astral world, but they are able to move up through the layers using something else to create their bodies from, but are significantly weakened in the process. Conrad shows up in the form of swarming rats during the plague, Slann manifests herself in the shape of fire during a heretic orgy, and most notably, Slann again creates a body for herself out of the innards and guts of trolls after the main character Guts had killed dozens of them. She is able to fully interact and still overpower Guts even in this form. So I end every video with a, what would you do if you had to fight this creature? Here with the God Hand, you don't. If you meet a God Hand, you have only two options. You're either there because you have a Bailet and you're there to make a sacrifice, in which case you either do it and become an apostle or live the rest of your life in despair, or you're there meeting them because you're about to be a sacrifice for someone else. Basically, you're fucked. You can't try to fight back against a God Hand because they can literally distort reality and send you flying away and probably kill you with the flick of a finger. Even if you are the one making a sacrifice and you do decide to become an apostle and you think that will help you fight them, well, tell that to Ganishka, an apostle who did oppose the God Hand and was still brought to his knees within their presence. Yeah, it's not happening. Your only saving grace would be if you're facing off against a God Hand as they take the form of something else. So if Conrad is made of rats and you kill all the rats, okay, but Conrad still exists. You didn't actually kill him, you only killed his vessel. And even when Slann was made out of the dead troll Guts, she was still able to take down Guts and wound him so deeply that both his body and spirit were damaged. Guts managed to cut her down with his sword, which had been enchanted in its own way, but still, he only killed the vessel. Slann still exists out there. So basically, no, you cannot fight or beat a God Hand at all. And I'm sure Miura is even racking his brain trying to figure out how to end the story with having antagonists that are so powerful. Maybe that's why we only get 2 chapters a year. I don't know. But anyways, guys, I hope you liked this video. I hope it was a good breakdown of the God Hand for you. Let me know what you think and leave a comment below. And if tomorrow you find a red Bailet, well, I hope you realize that fate has chosen you, and I really pray for all of your loved ones that are soon to be sacrificed. Anyways, guys, thanks a lot for watching this video. Give it a like, comment down below, hit the bell notification so you can see when I upload a video right away. Subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to you in the next Monster Manual.